Thank you, everyone, for staying with us on the program. We've just been joined by our first guest to have the conversation that focuses on the president's national broadcast from yesterday, which was the federal government's reaction or response to the hunger protest that started on the 1st of August, which was last week, Thursday. Our first guest this morning on the program is Ayo Bami Oyalowo, is development and political economist, here to help us weigh in on this conversation and then find some insights regarding the talking points associated with the president's speech from yesterday. Ayo, it's a pleasure to have you on the program this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good morning.
So my colleague Juma and I will spend the next couple of minutes just getting interactive with you. So let's begin with the part where the president says, I hear you loud and clear. Did that really resonate from your perspective with Nigerians, particularly the protesters?
Well, we have to ask ourselves what does the protesters really want?
They highlighted those demands, didn't they?
Some of the demands are not realistic. The realistic ones, like we are hungry and things are hard, yes, you will hear that clearly from the speech of the president, which I'm trying to keep on my phone here. However, the unrealistic ones, like release people who have been arrested justifiably by the law, like cancel the Senate. I mean, those are not making any sense to me. We are in a democracy, and we have a running constitution. And if we have these things running, and we have issues with them, then there are ways to go about it constitutionally. Also, for people who are printing foreign flags and looting shops, exactly, and looting shops, and nothing will resonate with those ones except you deal with them with the language they understand, which is...
What the language?
Well, anyone who is looting someone's shop, what language does that person understand?
Is it the violence that we saw, pockets of them?
It's no longer pockets. I mean, when people go on the street asking that we want a military coup, we want Russians to take over our country, that's no longer a protest. That is becoming an insurrection. And so it doesn't matter whatever the president or whoever says, those ones are not listening. And this is what some people were saying when they were thinking a protest may not be the best way to go about things, because clearly there are different kind of people with different agenda. You have the criminals who don't want the law, so that in the lawlessness they can perpetrate their criminal enterprise. You have those who have an agenda, maybe because they lost an election and they are thinking, okay, it's an opportunity to destabilize the government.
Let's bring the house down.
Exactly. So different kind of people. Yeah, but for genuine protesters who genuinely are worried about the hardship in the land, the speech will resonate, because you will see what the government has said. And I have a few here that I want to highlight, if you permit me. For instance, the government revenue in the first half of 2024 is about 9.1 trillion, which is more than double that of 2023. We've reduced the percentage of our revenue that is spent on debt servicing from 97% before to 68 thereabout. That is about 29% reduction, which is a good thing for us economically. So for people who are interested in the development and a good well-being of Nigerians, these are issues that you begin to look at. About $5 billion, that is a legitimate foreign outstanding debt exchange that we had before. Such obligations have been cleared. Now, 1.6 million barrels, we've raised our oil revenue from 1.2 thereabout to about 1.6, and it is still going up. In fact, I understand it's going to, it's about 1.7 now. Now, also
production output.
Yeah, production output. So it tells you that there are positives in the economy. So for people who genuinely are protesting for they want things to get better, those are things that will resonate with you. About 570 billion that has been released for states, for the 36 states, for livelihood support. The minimum wage that has been raised to 70,000 naira, and so many other positives from that speech that I could still talk about as we go in this conversation. Those things will resonate with you if you genuinely are after the well-being of Nigeria. But if your mind is on other things, then nothing the president says will matter to them. And we saw yesterday the British Prime Minister, who is just about a few weeks in office, we saw his own speech. I put them together beside each other. One president was saying, look, I heard you clearly.
Right.
And these are the things we are doing. The other one is saying, look, you will regret going on the street and destroying properties and committing criminal act. So I think we need to understand that the president has been human at this point. He has spoken to genuine Nigerians who have genuine grievances that can be dealt with. Now the other people, probably he will need to speak to them in the language they understand.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ayobami, looking at the president's broadcast critically, and a lot of elites in the society, respectable individuals like former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, of course, Wole Soyinka, they've all come out to say the broadcast fell below expectations. A lot of Nigerians were expecting more when it comes to this particular protest. Do you think it fell below expectations?
Well, you will have to ask them what they were looking for. It depends. For an Atiku Abubakar, who is a perpetual contestant for the office since 1992, nothing will assuage him except he's the president. So nothing anybody can say that will assuage him. As for Professor Wole Soyinka, yes, I think what he may be looking for, I really can't say, because in his speech, I didn't see the things he said he was looking for, but I can't say much about him. But for Atiku, who is a perpetual electoral contestant and who has never won any office,
okay, you know
in
what,
that office, I know he will always have something to say negative against somebody who defeated him in an election. So it's a normal thing.
Okay, let's put it aside. Let's look at ourselves as Nigerians now who sat down and listened to the broadcast of our president. Do you think it fell below expectations? Let me put it as that.
I just told you that if you are looking for, if you have genuine grievance, you will see the things that has been done. And then, yes, more can always be done. That is a natural human tendency. You will always want more. But for the time being, looking at where we are coming from, where we are going, see, some of the reasons that have been adduced for the high cost of living has been majorly transportation, generally. And what we have not asked ourselves is what should be the other solution? Because clearly, international fuel price keeps going up, and we are not immune from that. Now, the president said about 1 million kits to convert from petrol to CNG has been distributed. What we have not asked ourselves is many of our state governors who are the recipient of these kits, what have they been doing? Aside Lagos State that has given discounts on public transportation, many governors are on holiday, perpetual holiday. They only come alive when there is a time to share the FAC. As soon as FAC is shared, what you observe, if you've been following the economic trend, is that the rate of dollar to naira goes up. Now, Nigerians have not asked the genuine questions. You see, we say we are hungry, and then we are looking for how food will be produced en masse so that we can all have food to eat. But we have not asked the questions. Who owns the land? You and I know, by the constitutional provision of Nigeria, the federal government does not own an inch of land in Nigeria.
Because of
every
the
land by the Land Use Act, that's why I say by the constitutional provision, by the Land Use Act of Nigeria, every land in a state belongs to the state under the purview of the government. Now, if you follow trend, in the former times when we had the regions, the western region where I come from, I will try and use that as an example. We have what they used to call the farm settlement, which was built under the leadership of them, Akintola and Awolowo then, where you have settlements that are built for farmers, so that they will have something that does not distract from. We were having the challenge of rural-urban migration then. In order to stem it, they built settlements, very lovely estate where farmers can live in, and they will have every facilities that you have in the city, so that they are not tempted to leave. And then you have farms developed in those areas. Each of those farms were developed according to what such area produces in its own power. For instance, around the Ondo Akoko area, you have the cocoa and the oil palm area. You have them. And that was what battered the billionaires of those times, the Faja Moroccans and co and so on. Now, what we are not asking ourselves, what are our modern day governors doing in terms of agriculture. We all get angry, we are hungry. Do we actually expect Tinubu to start farming and giving us food? Before today, when the Buhari administration was on, we had states like Kebbi State, Jigawa State, Kano State, Niger State producing rice and mass, so that we can be fed in Nigeria. And it was the saving grace of Nigeria when the world was locked down during the COVID period, such that we didn't go hungry because we couldn't import food. Now, in just 1.5 years or less than 1.5 years of those governors leaving office, their predecessors have abandoned those prospects and projects. Because I was in Kano at the time, and I could see a huge investment in irrigation so that you will have farming all year round. Now, these things are no longer working the way they should work. Yet Nigerians are shouting they are hungry.
But have you thought about the insecurity in all those places?
That is where we are going somewhere.
Okay.
We saw I'm just first finished about the farming.
Okay.
Now, when we talk about security, we try to make it look like everywhere is completely unsafe, which truly we have challenges. But what are the problems and what are the solutions to insecurity? Those are also issues we have not tackled. We refuse to talk about it because we are scared of provoking some people. In the days that we were, maybe before my father and your father, then you need plenty children to farm. So you can marry many wives and born a lot of children and then take them to the farm. Today, you don't need that any longer. You have more of a mechanical system to help you farm. You have technology. So why are some people interested in birthing so many children they were not prepared to train? And then such children grow up and become a burden to the rest of the society. Now, we don't want to talk about this because we don't want to offend a lot of people.
But do you think if the livelihood, if the economy was stable...
what will stabilize the economy?
I'm getting somewhere. I allowed you.
Okay.
If the economy was stable and we had all of these things put in place, these children will not be able to in our society.
Who will put it in place now?
The government.
Why should the government train your children for you?
Put the right things in place.
What are the right things? See, we don't talk in... You see, most of the times we talk vaguely.
Okay.
I have 2 children. I am able to train them within my own abilities.
Because you can afford it.
No. I decided to have children when I realized I had the means to have children.
Okay.
Many people should not have children. I was reading a journal recently. In Japan, they were complaining about the dwindling population. And when the young people were interviewed, do you know what they were complaining about?
No,
that look, things were hard. The economy is high, so they can't live in the cities. And by living in the cities, they can't marry and have children because they cannot afford to train them. So until they can get to the point where they are training, they can train those children, they will not have children. So the government was begging and trying to look for how to go about making the rural area more inhabitable for young people to marry and live there. But in Nigeria, we don't care. Anybody just gives birth to anybody and then dump it on the road and then say the government. You see, this entitlement mentality is our biggest problem. You said the government should put anything in place for you to have children. It's not anybody's business. If you cannot have children, do not have children. You can't put children on the road and then make them my own burden. You go to a company, for instance. I made an analysis some times back. I said, look, the MD CEO has 2 children. The managing director, the general manager maybe has 2. Now the cleaner has 4. The maid has 20. And then you expect that, come on, if my father and your father works in the same company and they earn the same salary, and my father has 2 children, your father has 4 children, your father is a poor man compared to my father because he has to pay the same salary they are both earning, but he has to take care of 6 more people, himself, his wife, and the 4 children. My father has to take care of only his wife, B, and the 2, and my other brother. So making him a better... See, if we don't look at this, and I'll give you a good example. Before our independence, when Nigeria was under Britain, shortly before independence, we were 45 million people. Britain was 50 million people. Today, we are saying we are 200 and something, whatever we are. Britain is 67 million. So in 64 years, they've added 17 million people, including migration.
Are you recommending birth control?
Let me finish. In that same number of years, we have added over 150 million people. And you are saying the government. You see, there are things we don't want to talk about because we don't want to offend people or we don't even know about it. Population is a blessing if it is developed population. Population is a blessing if it is trained. Population is a blessing if it is a population that is productive. Population is a curse when you have a huge number of it. Many of them can't fend for themselves, and we all expect the government. Now that is a challenge.
Here, let's talk population for a second, Ayobami. You talked about Japan a while ago. That's Asia, apparently. But let's talk about China for a second, right? China did not, at some point, several years ago, leave the idea of childbirth to the discretion of citizens.
Yeah.
You have to step.
They made a law that you can't have more than a number of children. Yeah, exactly.
Stringent policies. Are you recommending such in light of this one?
Well, I am not the one in government. And like I say, since everybody is saying it, I have said it. Now they can pick from what I've said. I will not recommend for people because they will tell you there are cultural things, there are religious things. Those are the problems we have here. We bring culture, we bring religion, and when it comes to that area, I don't want to get involved. Because we have all seen that the moment religion and culture is mentioned, everybody loses their sense of reasoning, especially most people. So I will clearly stay out of it until those who are paid to do this say it. But I have said it in the way that anybody can think and reason. If we are 47 million in 1960 or 45 billion, and today we are 200 and whatever million we are calling it, and Britain, that we took our independence for, have had only 17 million people, including migration, then we have a problem.
Let's go back to the president's speech from.
Sorry, before I finish.
Right.
You know, sometimes some people say Nigeria is a rich country, we have oil. But you see, we have 1 barrel of oil to how many million people? We are doing, let's say, 1.5 million barrel to how many people? 150,000 people. Meanwhile, Saudi, that we are going to be competing against, for instance, have 1 barrel to 6 people. Do you understand what we're talking about here economically?
I'm glad you're an economist. I will also doing the comparative analysis of the level of corruption in the oil
Leave
sector.
the corruption alone first. Just look at the figure I've given you.
Right.
For a Saudi
there are underlying factors.
Yeah, there are underlying factors. I am not taking away the corruption. No. But I'm giving the reality. For 1 barrel that we drill in Nigeria,
right,
it has to feed 150,000 people. For 1 barrel that is drilled in Saudi Arabia, it just take care of just 6 people. In comparative, you see, that is why I just told you. I give you this example of if my father and your father works in the same company and they're on the same level and they both earn the same amount, and your father has 4 children while my father has maybe just 1 child, automatically your father is going to struggle more than my father, who doesn't have so many people. See, these are simple things that you don't even need to go to heaven to go and learn. When you build a population that is not productive and is so huge and is prepared to destroy at every opportunity, nothing you can do about it. So yes, China at a time had to regulate population. India at a time had to regulate population. I remember these things. These things are written for us so that we can learn. No. But if we refuse to learn, we will live with the consequences of our refusal to understand. It is good to build a population, but when you do not have enough resources to deal with that population, then we must be wise in the way we deal with this population.
Let me ask you something, Ayobami. You said something about entitlement. We all have this entitlement. Now, when a population is not productive, whose fault is it? It
is the people's fault. Did the government help you to give back to the children? Did they help you to tell? The problem is this. We are still not getting this point.
Well, we have.
Nobody told me to have only 2 children.
We have individuals that we have decided to vote into power to make life easier.
And that is their problem. It's not mine. You didn't vote for me.
No,
I decided that.
But you're making it look as if it's an entitlement thing with the population.
Yes, it is. Because you sat here now and you are telling me, no, you just told me now that the government need to put in place, and I'm asking you, did the government ask you to give back to the number of children you cannot take care of?
But if the government had,
did you see those people who went to destroy a library in Kano? Did you see them?
Yes, I did.
What can you do about those people? When they destroyed the library and stole everything there, they didn't take 1 single book from there because it's not their interest. Did you see what they were taking away?
But I hope you know some miscreants have actually, they hijacked. Like you mentioned, you said there are 2 people involved in this protest.
No, there are more than 2 people.
Okay, I'm just giving an instance. Yeah. The ones that feel the brunt of what's happening in
I think I get your point now. We have gotten there. Right. We are where we are now. Yes, I get you. So what is the way forward? That's what you are saying.
Exactly.
Now the way forward now is, okay, going forward, let's at least first deal with this population. Let's beg the people. People should not have children. I remember the former governor of Kaduna said, Nasir El-Rufai, There was a time he made a law. A boy was trying to make a law that they will punish parents who don't put their children in school. We saw how
And he
people
took his small boy to a public primary school.
Yes, and
Waiting
people
for
who
his
voted against him. You know, they voted against him that you can't tell us what to do with our kids. Now, these are the issues. Then some religious people came and said, no, it's our religion that we must not, you can't force children to go to school. Now, these are the issues. How do you deal with that?
First of all, I think we have to understand that as African Nigerians, we have culture, we have values, and we have morals. I think that is the first thing we should look at critically before we start giving things that does not sit well with individuals. You
Okay,
mentioned
and let's
that-
give bad to them, let them be plenty, and then we'll live with it.
No, I-
Since we don't want to deal with the truth, we'll let
No,
it bother us.
Well, no,
Listen, the truth is this. Let me tell you the truth.
practically
It does not. We are a poor country. Until we understand that we are a poor country, because I give you a simple analysis. For every barrel you drill in Nigeria, you see the number of people that is attached to it. For every barrel that they drill in Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is a Muslim country, Kuwait is a Muslim country. For every barrel they drill in those countries, it has to take care of only 2 or 3 people, depending on whether Kuwait or Saudi Arabia. Now, for every barrel you drill in Nigeria, you take care of 150 people. It's a huge difference. So we are, first and foremost, we must understand that we are naturally not a rich country. We are resource rich, don't misunderstand me.
True.
But we are not a rich country in that aim. Yes,
Because
and then
we
there is
don't know how to
and then
manage our
there is
resources.
corruption. Huge one, no doubt about that. I'm not coming to sit here and pretend there's no corruption. There is corruption. I'm only trying to let you see beyond the corruption factor, beyond the problem factor. We must understand that we are not a rich country. People can't just give back to children and expect government to come and take care of them for you. It is wrong. It is morally not right. It is your job to care for your children. We look at our leaders that went to school in those days, them Awolowo and them Akitola and Co. How did they go to school? Their parents, their community sent them to school. So we cannot, for the life of me, sit here and say government. Yes, government has its own part to make enabling environment available. And I will also advise that the people need to hold their leaders accountable, no doubt.
Very true.
For instance, universal basic education, which is a human right issue, from primary 1 to JS3, that is universal basic education. That's what they call year 1 to 9. It is under the purview of who? The local government and the state government, not the federal government.
Yes.
The federal government has no business sending your children to school. You need to understand this too. What are the government in some of the states doing in terms of basic education? I don't know. Maybe somebody will come and tell me. So these are also the challenges. The governors and their state houses of assembly must pass laws that will make sure that people go to school. At least if you have a basic education, you will not be a nuisance to the society. If you have at least a kind of a trade that you do. In those days, when people go to primary school and they finish, if you can't continue in secondary school, you go learn a trade. Today, most of these people that you saw on the street going around, what trade do they have? What did they learn? Not all of us are going to be doctors and lawyers like our parents used to push us. Some of us are going to be television analysts like you. Some of us are going to be, television presenters like you. Some are going to be lawyers. Some are going to be whatever they want to be. But at least you must have that basic education. But when people have children and they think they shouldn't have any education but religious education, it's dangerous. Because when they are done learning the religious thing, what will they do for a living? We have to put power in the hands of these people. And how do we do that? Educate them. When you educate them, they will in turn understand that, okay, we can't produce children anyhow like my own parents produce. We must work harder to make our children better. That is how you stop this rot. But we don't have that.
Right.
Nobody is telling people this. A few governors, a few emirs who have tried to make some of these pronouncements have either been condemned or removed or fought against. So these are the problems we must deal with. And this is not just a northern issue, because people will think I'm talking about just the north. Even in the south, where we had the Awolowo revolution in the past, today, go to some of our states today. The last time I was trying to contest for an election, what I saw where I came from shocked me. A huge population of our young people who are not going to school. They were just doing babake, following and looking for. So it's a problem we need to deal with. This lack of education is a challenge that we must deal with. And I keep saying it. This is under the problem of under the purview of the state governors and the local government. Now, this current president is trying to deal with this issue. He said, okay, let's give the local government autonomy What are some states doing now? One state, especially my own state, in Oyo, came together and said they don't want autonomy. They want to remain under the slavery of the governor, so that whatever he does with the local government allocation, the federal government should not get involved. Now, these are the challenges. How does Tinubu deal with this? How? Because everything we think we want to put on the president okay, say, look, let's give the federating component their own freedom. Let the local government have their own portion of their money so that they can do their job as local government. In those days, if you remember, if you have challenges with the road on your street, it's your local government governor, chairman that will deal with it. True. Today, they don't do anything. Now, this is what this president is trying to bring back. But some states have decided that no, they don't want. So it is easy to sit here and blame the federal government for all our problems.
We need to take a quick break right now. I think we need to catch our breath quickly. But then we have a lot of things to unbundle as we take this quick break and return shortly. We do encourage you to stay with us, everyone. Thank you for staying with us, everyone. So I'm going to ask you this quickly. I mean, a while ago you talked about, you just run through the numbers, what the federal government is doing, particularly to alleviate the sufferings of Nigerians and all of that. And they say numbers don't lie. But in Nigeria as it stands right now, maybe because of our level of development, numbers are more like an elitist element. The everyday person is asking, how does that put eba and egusi soup on my table? So they don't care about those numbers, how much of oil you're drilling every day, whether it's 2 million barrels or 4 million barrels or just a barrel. The question is, how do they find their way from their homes to their workplaces, to their business places, and come back home safe and sound? And basically, that's for, on the one hand. On the other hand, a man like Professor Wole Soyinka, one would have thought he's the president's friend, and as such, he would throw his weight behind the president, come what may, on account of yesterday's speech. And one of the highlights from his condemnation of that speech, or his reaction to that speech, is that given what the president presented yesterday, the vicious cycle, to use his exact words, of crackdown on protesters in Nigeria has not changed. So how do you react to that?
Well, which of the ones you want me to react to first? No?
Both of them. You can start from the top, which is the one that has to do with what puts food on the table.
What will put food on the table is one of the things I've said earlier on. We need to hold our governors to account. We have, and it's going to, I would dovetail it into the other area. Mm-hmm. See, we have given these people too much free room to operate without the governors, without being held to account. How do I mean? When I was reading out some of the figures earlier, I told you how much has been passed on to the states from the federation account, which is huge sums.
In trillions.
Yeah. Now, ask ourselves this sincere truth. What have the governors done with this money? What I would have expected, which I'm looking at now as solution, is the federal government have started with the CNG buses, but the federal government still does not have business going into transportation. It is still the states. So what I would have expected most of our states to do is to have more conversion center of the CNG. Now, if you convert CNG, maybe you need to understand this. If you convert your car from petrol to CNG, which is the natural gas, the compressed natural gas system, you are going to reduce the usage or the money you spend on petrol by over 60%. By over, is it 60 or 65%? A lot of money will be saved. So what I would have expected the state to do is to massively go into this conversion by empowering the local or the state transport system. So that if this is done, what this automatically does is, one, the workers and people who move around doing business will automatically reduce the cost of transportation, which will reduce the cost of goods and services. That's number one. Number two, it should also help in terms of transporting farm products or produce from the farming centers to the urban centers, which has been seen also as a problem because farmers will tell you we didn't change the price of our good. What will be, but from the farm to the city, the prices keep going up. So also, I would have expected also that the state governors will look at, okay, this is my state. What can I produce a mass that can feed Nigerians? Now, from there, look at how to build what you call a value chain around it, from clearing the land to the final product. If we're able to do these things, because for me, we are not looking at where the problem is. If the state governors, because I saw the Niger state governor, this current one now, trying to, in fact, his name, he goes by the name Farmer Bago, instead of His Excellency. That's so. If he's able to push this to the end, then we should see agriculture being a blessing in that. I mean, most of us also know that before we used to call Benue the food basket of Nigeria. But what are the governors in those areas doing? Now, when we have dealt with that, now we look at the security aspect, because that's a challenge that we can't run away from. Right. I have given the example of how we got here when we have an untrained population and they have seen that there is wealth somewhere. So some became bandits, some became Boko Haram, some became whatever they are becoming, kidnappers, and all manner of criminals. Now, if we have made provisions for everybody and people want to still continue to be criminals, now we need to either hire more for police or whatever we need to do in those areas, and then we must have what you call community policing, because clearly before these bandits and criminals take root, the community should be aware. So it's like the communities themselves are either helping these people, or maybe they are even their children. Because let me tell you the truth, a criminal cannot operate within an area without people knowing and being able to maybe speak to the, but we have gotten to the point where even some of our, so I think recently I saw a video of a policeman who has been working with bandits, killing his own fellow policemen and selling their rifles to, I don't know whether you saw that video, it trended about 2-3 weeks ago. So these are issues that we need to deal with. So when we deal with the aspect of how our funds are being spent by the state governors, we must also look at how we will help with policing. When I say help with policing, I mean in terms of giving intelligence to help the security to deal with criminals better, because criminals cannot operate in your area without you, the people in the community, having an idea that this person is trained. I mean, I remember there was a day I went to London, and when I got there, my friend, because I took a flight that took longer, that was, I think it was this Emirates, took me through Dubai and so on. So I didn't get there when I should. When I got there on a Saturday morning or early afternoon, and my friend had gone to church for training, for his choir, whatever. So as I was standing, already the neighbors were looking at, this is a strange guy here. They were already apprehensive until one of them came out and actually approached me. Said, look, I know you are looking for so and so, because she's seen that I'm a black guy and my friend is the only black guy in that community. Said, do you know where I'm going to help you? I said, no. Said, I'm an African. She was just laughing that she lived in South Africa all her life, and she knew how Africans are. She knew I'm this guy's friend. So come stay in my flat until he comes back. Now, but what am I saying? She said, look at that window. That woman, I saw somebody quickly dropped. She was going to call the police on you because you are hanging around. Now, that is community policing. Unlike here, when we see strange people, we just take nothing concern me. You know, reach my place. It's part of the challenge that brought us here. We must be involved with policing our community, because look, police don't have 4 eyes.
But will you agree with me that I know community policing is very good, it's very interesting, but the outcome that comes out of it, if you come out and you want to be
identity of the person who has informed the police.
Not only that, being my brother's keeper, putting you into serious disarray.
Yeah, that's why you know I blame the police too just now. So I'm not trying to blame the people only. Okay. But we must have a system where you can be an anonymous reporter. There was a time during this Buhari period when they came up with this whistleblowing thing for corruption. Yes. And there are anonymous ways you can complain without being traced. So we need to bring those things back. So like I told you, I'm not here to blame, I'm giving solution. I've told you the problems, I'm trying to give solution based on my own understanding.
Okay.
So we should create a community policing system, and we must also create platform where people can report without being traced. And if you remember, police always display police numbers. So I'm sure you can make calls by disguising your numbers. You can make sure that your number is not shown. So these are things we need to do. We also have to help them. We have to understand they are limited, they are human beings. They need our help. So everybody should have the police number in your state, in your area. You should be able to call by disguising your number if you are scared to show your face, which is not a crime not to want to be known. Because even abroad, sometimes you've seen people that report get dealt with too. So I get your point, and it's a valid point. But we must have a system where we help the security. But like I said, our governors, they are in charge of the land. They are in charge of transportation. They are in charge of the culture. But we have given them free pass. Tinubu cannot feed Nigeria. The governors must feed Nigerians. Look, when they said there's going to be a big power demonstration, do you know what my governor in Oyo State did? He decided to travel. Because it's not his business. I check what happened. Of all the Southwest State, take Lagos out, it's only Oyo State that has been very serious demonstration. Nobody demonstrating in Okiti, because they all understand that our governors are either our blessings or our curse. So they have held their governors to account. They understand these issues. But my Oyo State governor decided to leave Nigeria. That's why he decided he wants to go and leave. So these are the issues. These guys don't even understand that they are the problem yet. No governor has been denied his statutory FAC allowance.
But sorry, the Kano State governor was at home when he's,
he said he loved demonstration. He said you remember the Kano State governor clearly said he wants demonstration. He said he supported them, and they came to his office to come and
but Borno governor didn't say that. Jigawa, for example.
See, Borno, did you see what happened yesterday again, Borno? They actually overrun a military vehicle they were driving. See, some of these guys, and you remember the police warned in Borno that Boko Haram people were also part of those who were mobilizing for this. And the first or the second day, there was a bomb blast that killed about 16 people.
The day before the protest.
Exactly. So clearly, like I told you, criminal elements are also part of these things. So that is why, if you are refusing to be appeased, then maybe something needs to be done. And now coming back to what you say about Professor Wole Soyinka, see, Professor, for all good intent, is the friend of the president. And probably he was expecting some things. And I know the more he's expecting, but maybe I don't want to see it. But maybe the president has his own idea. You see, everybody expect the president to come yesterday, dissolve the cabinet, sack everybody. But all these things are tokenism, seriously. He's going to do what he needs to do when he thinks it is right to do it. Some people who are close to him, I mean, he has a team that is evaluating his appointees. And I understand some of the reports are ready. He's going to act on that report at his right time. We can't sit here and pretend we know what is going on there. We need to give him the opportunity to take the right decision for Nigeria and for his cabinet to work the way he wants it to work. He must have seen some of the things we have seen too. He's not an idiot. The president is one of the smartest people I know. One thing many people don't know about him is his looks belies his mind. He sees more than you think he sees. So he's working on it. We've had some rumors here and there. So probably these things will come to pass soon. So Professor will never be satisfied by whatever. We know who he is. He's one of those most fastidious human beings on earth. I hold him in the highest esteem and regard. I'm not going to sit here and say anything nasty about Professor Wole Soyinka. He's one of those people that we respect. And if he says something, it needs to be looked into. So, but I believe he has other channels of communication with the president. Probably they're having their own private communication. I don't know. So I'm not going to sit here and begin to judge on what he says. But for me, I have said what I think I should say. I have said what I think I understand based on the things that are available to Nigerians and to me as a person. Maybe if there are other areas that we don't know, then those who knows about it should talk better about what is going on. But I think the president has been fair to Nigerians in terms of spending the money that has come in from the removal of subsidy. What we have not bothered ourselves with is what I've come here to expose, which is what have the governors been doing with this huge, humongous amount that has been coming to them. Look at a state, for instance, like Bayelsa. In terms of allocation of resources, they get number 2 or number 3. And Bayelsa is the smallest state in Nigeria with very few people, with small land mass. Yet,
it's local government areas.
And yet, they don't pay salaries. Yet they don't even pay minimum wage. At 30,000 they don't pay. They are owing. So these are the issues. A Bayelsa that is that small, but we're not worried. Abia does not pay 30,000 minimum wage, but we're not worried. It is Tinubu we are angry at, who has decided to pay 70,000. So these are the issues.
But you seem to be mentioning opposition states. More
because
they are
no, I'm not opposition here. Oh.
They are APC run
no,
states.
Please mention one for me. I will tell you what I think about.
But I want to ask you something.
No, please give me one APC that is not paying.
It's a Monday now. I mean, a lot.
Okay, yeah. We remember that the former Kogi State governor was not paying full.
That changed under the new governor.
Yeah, it has changed because I asked people. It has changed. The new governor is paying full salaries to people now. No more half salary, no more less than minimum wage. I'm aware of that. So it is not about opposition for me. It's about what is going on. For instance, I will have talked about Benue before too, because it was a PDP state. But clearly, the new governor has bucked the trend. He's paying full salaries to people. He's not owing. In fact, I understand he started paying the backlog of what he made on the ground. So what do you want me to say? I can't just come here and blame people for. Except if you have a fact, please challenge me with it. I'll be very grateful.
Let's talk about something that's quite factual here. Like I said, today is Monday. Nigerians earlier this morning were largely apprehensive.
Even I was scared coming out.
Exactly, given what had happened last week and all of that. The president gave a speech yesterday, and part of it was him saying to the protesters to end the protests because he had. His government, under his leadership, has made a lot of, rolled out initiatives to help ease the pain and stuff like that. Was that an appeal the president was making, or was it an order he was given?
Well, I don't know how people say this is an order. It's a man making a report of his stewardship. It's like telling you, these are the things I've done.
Was he ordering the protesters to go home? Or was he appealing to their conscience?
He doesn't. It's like a father. A father doesn't order except you decide to now be unruly. He's appealing to genuine protesters to see what he has done, and in the light of this, have a rethink. And if you remember, he's not ordering. If he was saying, let's come for dialogue, he's saying it's time for dialogue. He said that. So how is that an order? That is, look, maybe you didn't know. No, these are the issues. These are the things I've done. Please, let's talk.
Can we dialogue with the story that the DSS just picked up the leader of the protest in Abuja this morning?
I don't know about that. I'm not hearing that already. No, I've not seen the news, so I don't know. I can't
assuming, and without conceding that that's the case, for example, does that still open that window for dialogue?
Well,
because the DSS is a federal
except if
agency.
Maybe there are things they know that you don't know. Because I saw one intel that was passes. I don't know how true that intel is. That some people are mobilizing people to come and attack, or maybe that is the reason. I don't know. I saw that yesterday. I can show you to read it through if you want to. That some people are mobilizing people from neighboring states to come and attack
the capital.
Yeah. So maybe that is why. But I'm not saying that is it. I'm just saying probably. So I really don't want to talk about things I don't know, because it's just be a matter of conjecture here. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not
across Africa recently from.
Did you see the one going on in the UK?
Yes, of course. Let's come closer to home. We've seen Kenya, for example. We've seen Uganda under Museveni, for instance, and then
we've seen Sudan too.
Exactly. Sudan has been there for a while, maybe longer than Nigeria.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think Sudan is not very much in the spotlight right now. But isn't this a continent-wide phenomenon we're seeing right now?
Yeah, what many people don't understand is also that, you see, if you are under an unrest, if your country is in an unrest, it's easy for people who want your country to be destabilized to come in and take from you without any stress. You see, if Nigeria is organized and there's no issue, anybody who wants any of our minerals have to pay royalty and everything. But if they are able to cause problem like they have caused in Congo and Sudan, they don't need to pay any royalty. They just give a few people who don't have sense, who think they are fighting, they give them more guns to kill themselves further, and then they take everything they want to take for free. So these are the challenge. Look at what has happened in Kenya. I don't know whether you've read the latest report. Now, whatever they were complaining about before they started that protest has gone worse now. Now, every rating agency have backlisted them. So they are in a deep hole in terms of indebtedness, in terms of every economic indices. Now, this is something we should not allow to happen. See, I always say, even when you are crying, try and make sure you are seeing what is ahead of you. Because on the long run, anything you do without thinking will come back to haunt you. Kenya right now is a mess economically, socially. Most businesses have been ruined. I'm sure you saw what happened after the protest. They looted shops, and Kenya is a small economy. Kenya is also an economy that thrives basically on tourism. Now that has been destroyed for now. So these are the problems we need to look at. And when I mention Sudan and Congo, I know what I'm saying. Sudan started like a protest. One lady started it was a bread issue. Say bread. Now today Sudan is now on a war path. Somebody, I think Elon Musk this morning, I just saw him say, yesterday I say Britain is on the path to a civil war. I don't know whether you've seen that. So these are the issues. That is why protesters must be reasonable to know when to draw back, so that your protests do not get hijacked by elements that have insurrectionist agenda in their mind. Because when a protest becomes too elongated, it degenerates. And when it degenerates, insurrections take over. And when you have a system where you don't have a central government, that is when the lives become the Hobbesian nature of life, where life becomes short, nasty, and brutish, because everybody now takes by force. We don't want to get to that point.
Well, let me ask a question, Ayobami. Now, we've seen that some states are actually talking about drawing back. States like Edo, for instance, Ring Road, they decided to dismantle their podium, and some states who have actually followed suit. But some states have decided to go into, but like Kano, for instance,
back to the streets.
have gone back to the streets. Now, what is the implication of all of these things?
Well, some of these people, like I said, they're no longer protesters. The Kano state you mentioned, do you know that overnight, Kaduna, they arrested about 400 tailors making Russian flags? Now, is that a protest? Let us be realistic with ourselves. Is that a protest any longer? We are no longer. I mean, some of the chants that came from those people in Kano that I heard, because I can speak Hausa, was, we are no longer doing. We want Putin to come over. We want military government. That is no longer a protest. That is an insurrection. So we need to situate these things clearly. That's why I keep telling you that from my own thinking, where I sit here, if you are a genuine protester, the president's appeal is enough for you to sit back and rethink. Give him time. Let's see how the implementation of these things will work. Then you can now re-strategize and say, look, let's give him time or let's fight further. But anything that begins to have a coloration of insurrection, I don't support. Protest is a legitimate tool to draw attention to your pain. Now you have drawn the attention. You wanted attention. You've gotten that attention. The president has spoken. Now, after that, any other thing, I don't understand it again.
Do you know what
those are genuine protesters you just mentioned. They've dismantled and said they are going home because he has spoken, he has addressed their issues. Now, this one that say we are not agreeing, they are carrying foreign flags. They are calling for military takeover. Those are no longer protesters.
Well, let me ask a question, Ayobami. How did we get to this point of protest in the first place? Do you think it's a backlog of what individuals have decided to, to take in? If you look at it months back in Niger State, there was a protest that had to do with hunger, and we know about the looting that happened in warehouses and all of that. Do you think if the government was proactive that time, we wouldn't have gotten to this point?
There's no proactiveness. You can be proactive when people have other different agendas.
People are hungry.
People are always going to be hungry. Let us be realistic with ourselves. I saw a letter written by Taisho Lare in about 40-something years ago about his school. It will have just, all you need to do is change the name of that letter. It is just written yesterday. So it is not yesterday that we'll start having problem. And that's why I said, look, if you have a problem, what we should have done is let's control. Okay, let me give you a honest example from Nigeria. I've told you how the population issue had been a problem, right? Now, we built our last refinery in 1984 or 82, which means we have not added a single refinery to our refinery.
In over 40 years.
In over 40 years. Okay, but when we took our last population census in 1988, do you know how many we were then? 88.2 million. Go and check. And now, when we took the last one under Obasanjo,
in 2006.
2006, it was 100 and what? I can't remember the exact figure. Now we're using estimate. So which means we've stopped developing for 40 years. But we keep developing human beings that we can't train. So it doesn't matter the rate of your economic growth. The moment your population, this is an economic term now. If your population growth is above your economic growth, nothing you can do. Nothing. Because for every 1 naira you are going to be making, you are going to be having more people needing that 1 naira than what you will have had if your economic growth and your birth rate is within the same range. So our population growth is too big for our economic growth. So we need to understand this. So I am very, very big on economy and population because I understand the nexus between it. And like I keep saying, if your father is a manager in this company and he earns 500,000, and my father is a manager in the company and then 500,000, my father has 2 children, my father has 6 children, your father is going to struggle because he needs more money to take care of more people.
Now that we're talking about the economy, as we tied up now, Ayobami, Kenya, you mentioned a while ago, started their problem. I mean, their problem started with the...
They said there was a tax issue. Yeah, there was
right,
tax reform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That led to protests taking to the street.
And do you know why the tax reform came? Before you go to your question,
Right.
It was because they were having a huge debt. So they were trying to make a tax reform to be able to pay off the debt, just for all to understand.
Right, the perspective, right?
Perspective,
But,
yes.
but then again, we understand that these ideas basically came to President William Ruto from the IMF.
IMF, yeah.
We're yet to confirm all of that. But we do know, for example, the amount of influence that multilateral institutions exert on African countries and even other parts of the third world, as they call them, the global south. When the current governor of the CBN, Dr. Olayemi Kadoso, was being grilled by the Senate, I mean, when he was being screened, Senator Oshomole vehemently and repeatedly told him about the dangers. In fact, he even advised President Tinubu from that point. They say, look, the president must be careful. The CBN governor and those who manage our economy must be careful how much they listen to the IMFs of this world, the World Banks of this world, and even the AFDBs of this world, for example. Is Nigeria listening? And how are we sure President Tinubu is not also under this influence?
I honestly can't answer the question, but I will tell you something around that area.
Right.
I'm a political and development economist, right? I am also a vehemently anti. We call them the Washington Consensus Group,
Right.
or what you call the Bretton Woods Institution. I am also completely against them. I am anti them because I understand that these institutions were created with the sole aim of advancing their own interests above your own interests. So I don't know if the president is listening to them, but if he is, I will beg him to stop. But like Obasanjo said, you don't fight them. You listen, but you don't do. So that they don't deliberately create problem for you.
And stifle your economy.
They will deliberately make your life difficult. So you don't fight them. But what you do is you don't take their pay. I remember our former Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, saying we will use our own homegrown system. She didn't follow their advice. So I will advise, if the government is listening today to me, that we should not fight them. You don't fight these people. They are big. They are strong. I have taken my time. In one of my classes when I was running my PhD, one of the books that I had to deal with or use is the Confession of the Economic Hitman. Then it has the New Confession of the Economic Hitman. Their plan and their program is always to destabilize your economy. No doubt about that. And if you don't listen, they can even kill you. The man gave example of so many countries in South America, how they kill them, how they use the FBI to create coup. And so, yes, I understand these people. So you don't fight them, like I said, but you don't take their appeals because it has never worked. Even in Europe, it didn't work. Remember, Portugal had to go to Angola to help their economy. We remember when they took their eyes on Greece. We saw what happened in Greece then. So clearly, these institutions were built not to help you, but to pretend to be helping you. We know this. So I don't know if the president is listening to them, but even if he's listening to them, he should not follow their policy recommendation because it is always built to advance their interests above your interests. This is where I belong. I belong in that school of thought that will never follow whatever the IMF, the World Bank, and whatever they are saying. I don't like them. They don't like us. They hate us. They don't want us to develop. And they will always pretend to be our friends. I know this. And I sit here to say, I am never a pro IMF. I am never. Pro Washington, we call them the Washington Consensus Group. I am never a pro. So I don't know wherever the president is listening to, but one thing I will advise is don't take their recommendation, even if you want to look at the ones that can work for us.
Take it with a pinch of salt.
Exactly.
I think that's where we're going to leave it. Ayobami Oyolowo, political and development economist, for coming to share with us this morning. Your insights are very valuable to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Ayobami, for being a part of the program, sharing your well of experience with us and, of course, knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And that's where we're going to leave it on Global Morning, this Monday's edition. We want to say a big thank you to you for spending part of your time with us on the program. Just a quick caveat for you to realize that the views of our guests are their opinions, and we do respect those views as well, and there are no opinions of television. I'm Uyi Agmofwebe.
And I am Jumai Manson. Thank you all so much for being a part of us, with us on Global Morning. Bye-bye.